But the day I gave my life to Christ, nobody invited me. I was on my way home, That kind of encounter you just had with God, and I couldn't just go home. And I just had this strong urge, became troubled, go to that fellowship. I'm like, me. Then I was a big boy in school, go to fellowship. What would the girls say? News will go everywhere. Everybody will be disappointed. But I went. In fact, I still remember the experience. The moment I entered, you see everybody just turning back. As in, people were just whispering, Dele Osunmakinde, Dele Osunmakinde.
My father told me life is not a bit.
This is Origins Africa podcast, where we explore the origin stories of people who have made and are making their dreams come true, asking the what, the when, the how, and the why. I'm Osheye, and on this episode, we meet Pastor Dele Osunmakinde, the founding pastor of the Baptizing Church. This is the first of a two-part conversation. You hear Pastor Dele talk about being 44, the lessons learned and mistakes made. He'll also talk about how he's been able to organize his life effectively, as well as the spectacular encounter he had with God in 1993 that's led him on the journey he's been on since then. Origins Africa is about the origin stories of people who have made and are making their dreams come true, uncovering the early years, embarrassing first efforts, fears, struggles and challenges, mistakes and failures, lessons, shortcomings, and the messiness of being human on the road to living one's dreams. What this means for us here at Origins Africa is that we have to deliberately feature guest stories from all walks of life, because people's dreams cut across different sectors and industry verticals: technology, fashion, food, media and entertainment, public relations, sports, hospitality, faith, health, education, consulting, the social sector, amongst others. On this episode and the next, we explore the faith world and meet Dele Osunmakinde, the founding pastor of the Baptizing Church. The Baptizing Church started in Abuja in 2005 and was formally commissioned in 2007 by Pastor Tunde Bakare, with a vision to raise a generation who will influence things to the ends of the earth. Today, the Baptizing Church has expanded beyond Abuja to several cities. Interestingly, as a young boy in science class in secondary school, Pastor Dele wanted to be a medical doctor.
I wanted to become a medical doctor. And coincidentally, out of all my friends, I'm the only one now who's not a doctor, because eventually I didn't study medicine. Of course, it was very disappointing for my parents, because they really wanted me to study medicine. But you see, that's also part of becoming born again. It was actually the Lord that told me not to study medicine. I still remember where I got that, and he told me what to study. And that's why I ended up not studying medicine. Yeah, of course, my parents didn't like the idea, but eventually they got used to it.
Do you remember why you wanted to study medicine?
My motivation was my uncle, Senator Mamra, who is a medical doctor. From childhood, he did his house job in Abuja, so he was always coming to our house, So I would see him, and right, from that moment of seeing him as a medical doctor, I just made up my mind I was going to be a doctor.
Okay. And your parents supported the idea?
Yes. As a matter of fact, those growing years, my father and his friends used to call me doctor already, because they already believed I was going to study medicine. And I was actually on the way. If I'd given it shots, possibly I'll be a doctor today. But like I said, I just knew that was not my purpose. So there's no point just, going all the way and not having anything to do with it. So,
how did you convince them though? Was it tough? Was it a tough one? Your parents, when you decided not to go study medicine?
Yes, of course it was tough, but they are very wonderful parents. But with time, they understood, and I think over time, that time has proven that I didn't need to go that route.
How exactly did Pastor Dele know that studying medicine was not his purpose, and what happened during that period? Stay tuned to find out. Today, Pastor Dele describes himself as a polymath and philomath.
A philomath and a polymath, those are words that would also describe an expert, a researcher, one who is keen about learning, and one who is also a multitasker, just multitask. Or you could also say a networked individual. So, well, I do so much. Presently, I'm a PhD researcher, so I'm researching the role of spiritual capital in social entrepreneurship. So I'm just trying to look at how to theorize and to conceptualize and create empirical studies around all that we do in church. And all those things enhance our capacity to generate values that will drive an enterprise. So apart from that, I'm also involved with training budding and aspiring entrepreneurs. And of course, I'm a pastor, I'm a father, I'm an husband. So I'm an author, international conference speaker. So if you look at how many things I do, you will indeed agree with me that I'm actually a polymath. So that's basically what it is. It's just a way of just, summarizing all that one does. And to also, let people know that, I touch many things. I just put it that way. So I'm a man that touches many parts. So,
Okay. And how are you able to juggle all?
Well, you see, like I usually tell people, once you become a man of purpose, what purpose? Purpose itself is a multiplier. Purpose also streamlines. So what originality and purpose does is to cut off the noise out there for you. And because you are not involved with the noise and the bandwagon effect, I beg your pardon. So the little time you have is optimized and is maximized. And that's why people feel, are you able to do so many things? So the question is the other way around. You're able to do so many things because you have cut out what is not necessary. And once you cut out what is not necessary, the noise, the distraction, the competition, trying to be like this, trying to be like that. And once you find the original value, original template, originality in God and your purpose, you just realize that what you are now left with is to maximize and optimize imperatives or purpose of destiny of, what is, it's all about your destiny and purpose. So because of that, it's as if your timeline is now concentrated because you are not spreading things around again. So in that case, you tend to achieve more because you are now focused on the vital. And by the time you do that, you do so much with so little. And that's just what it's all about. And that's why it appears on the outside as if you are doing so much. But technically, what you are actually doing is to do the vital and leave out what is not important.
Okay. I hear you, but I think to some people out there, even the vital that you're doing, like you mentioned, you're pastor, you do trainings, you're an international conference speaker, you're an author, a husband, father.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is still a lot to some people out there. So even though I hear you that, yes, you've come to, you know your purpose and that has helped you focus on the major things, on the vital stuff. Still, bearing in mind all this, do Doesn't it get stressful sometimes having to handle all this? Or is it
not
a breeze all
really,
through?
not really, because we all have 24 hours every day. So what I try to do is to divide my timeline into I divide my day into 3 parts, and each part will run for 8 hours. So the first 8 hours is about me. It's about capacity building. That's when I pray, meditate, read, do all those things that will also enhance my own capacity. So the next 8 hours, dedicated to those I need to reach out to, that will involve making phone calls, eating, walking, and, just being a blessing. And so then the last 8 hours, I rest, and it's also for me. So that's when I sleep, or maybe see a movie, or do something. So it's just a matter of organizing your
It
life
sounds
around
so
your
simple
purpose.
the way you've described it. I don't know if reality
That's what I
is.
said. I also said organizing your life around your purpose. So there, of course, there's a bit of organization there, and of course, there's also an element of discipline there, in that you need to stick to those very strict timelines. Like, for example, now when it's time for me to do my thing, it might be difficult for you to get me. And, and when I also want to do other things. So it's just a matter of just looking at it that, look, time is a fixed asset. So you just have to plan and optimize and maximize what is delivering. And so, by the time you start out, I must confess, it looks a bit challenging. But with time, as you begin to live it out, you just realize that it becomes an habit, it becomes a lifestyle. And you just easily get on, and no problems at all.
Okay. So in the early years, there were the struggles with organizing your time and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, not a yes, maybe no, and maybe yes plus no, in the sense that that's when I say plus and minus, in the sense that I've always been a very organized person, even from childhood, primary school, secondary school, and of course when I was in the university. I don't just like disorganization. Organization and being organized has always been part of my life. So, so that's why I said, to that extent, it wasn't really a struggle. It was, take for instance, when I was in university, I'm this kind of guy that would not read, during the semester. But once the exam timetables, came out at the time, I'll start reading, because that's the way I get organized. Because, at that time when I was in university, we didn't have continuous assessment, so it was just exams. So I didn't really see any reason why I should really bother myself about reading, during the semester. So, but by the time the exam, because you see, the timetable thing resonates with my being, because I'm this kind of person that you have to put a structure in front of me to get me to perform. But once the timetable is out, you see me organizing my study, and I excelled academically. So that's the way. I remember secondary school too. Once they just say you have a test or an exam, that's when you bring out the genius in me. It's difficult for me to just pick a book, while in school, to just start reading, or a course. But if there's a timeline, there's something I'm pressing towards, an exam or a test, you see me, I start reading and I excel. But if that is not there, it's difficult. So, and that is what I've carried over, in that once I'm able to organize and have some kind of a semblance of a timetable, that, like today now, everything I wanted to achieve today, by midnight yesterday, I wrote out everything on a sheet of paper, and it's by me now. So once I achieve something, I just take it. So that's how it works for me. So I always write things down, and I always attack timeline. Okay, I need to achieve this by this time, by that time. And I realize that once I do that, the essence, I mean, the very essence of just getting that sense of fulfillment in yourself, in that you are taking things off your bucket list, I mean, brings out the genius in me.
True.
At the time we recorded this interview in 2021, Pastor Dele had recently celebrated his 44th birthday. So, of course, we asked him how he felt being 44.
Sincerely, I feel 25. Because on my 40th birthday, my mother was there, so I had to walk up to her. And I said, Mommy, please, I need to ask you a question. Please be honest with me. Was I really born in 1977? I was in 2017. Because believe me, I had to. Maybe the only thing that made me to possibly reconsider I was actually 40 was when I saw my children. But other than that, I was like, when did I turn 40? When was I 25? I still remember when I was 25. So it looks like I was still living in that zone. But again, you look around, your daughter, I mean, my daughters were getting old, and, so I just told myself, I said, I must be maybe around 40, really, because at least I remember my primary school memories, secondary school memories, and all my classmates also at that season were also turning 40 here and there. So I just encouraged myself that maybe it's true. I feel youthful, I feel young.
Why do you think that is in maybe comparison to others your age mates?
Well, I think, you see, youthfulness is also it's a state of the mind. Once you begin to get on a purpose lane, destiny lane, you just realize that you tend to grow younger, as it were. And of course, when you are youthful at heart, young at heart, you just realize that, yes, of course, age could be going north, but you are still contemporarily relevant. And somehow, I think that is the preservation in that regard, in that you don't feel as if you are getting old. But of course, you are getting old, but you're still a learner. Your outlook to life is that of a very young person. So you don't, of course, you are conscious of your age so that you don't also become silly or foolish. But at the same time, the outlook is just, the eagerness to learn and trying to be the best you can be in the scheme of things. And not using age as a barrier, when it comes to anything progressive.
Okay. So looking back through the years, being 44, what would you say some of your proudest moments have been?
Well, I'll be serving the Lord. Sincerely, I thank God for counting me worthy and, putting me in the ministry. Looking back, the high points for me from those days in secondary school, because I became born again right from secondary school to the university to date. The greatest joy of my life is looking back and seeing how many people one has affected and touched their lives, and who also in turn also doing great things for God and for humanity. That's the greatest joy for me.
Okay. Looking back as well, are there any things you feel maybe you would have done differently, even though you've learned the lessons?
Of course, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. We're growing and we're learning. I've made quite some mistakes also in life. I can share some of them with you. Maybe yes, I should have been more patient with some people. Looking back now. So there were some people I was very hard on them, as a pastor on campus. And, when I still see some of them now that eventually they made it, at times I'm like, maybe I should have, been a little more patient. I was this very tough kind of campus fellowship pastor and teacher who was always very hard on people, trying to bring out the best in them. And because of that, some people had issues with me. So looking back now, after almost 25 years, I'm saying I should have been, more patient, maybe more friendly.
Okay.
Because then my outlook was that, look, I'm your pastor, I'm not your friend. I can't be your friend and be your pastor at the same time. I just want to pastor you. And I don't want to have anything personal to do with you. But, looking back, maybe I should have been more accommodating and more friendly and more understanding. But, I guess that's it. And of course, for me, that was, and of course, looking back at my university days also, maybe I should have also I've enjoyed university the more. And now the university also passed through me because I just realized other than fellowship and going to class, I did no other thing in the university. I was just a straight-jacketed kind of individual.
Okay. What are some of the things you have liked to have explored in the university?
Maybe to the academic world the more, and also make friends across the board, because it appeared that back then, once you're not a Christian, you're not born again. We didn't have anything in common. Even if I'm my classmate, we not even talk, other than hi, or maybe if we have classwork to do together. So I felt I should have been entered into other people's worlds to just, see what they've got also, and not just, having only Christian friends. And, and of course, to also have explored the academic world, much more. Because then I was just interested in passing my exams and just graduating. But now that I'm a researcher now, I'm beginning to appreciate the academic world, much more. So it's,
okay.
Of course, was never part of any, group in school other than fellowship. Now, I've loved the situation whereby at least I was part of one of these clubs or societies, Of course, they invited me then, but I didn't see why I should, do that. But now looking back, I'm seeing that one should have at least, been a son of God and at the same time the son of man.
Pastor Dele grew up in the southwestern part of Nigeria, Abeokuta, in Ogun State, and described his life growing up as fun because,
one, everyone was content, especially if you are privileged to have both parents as civil servant, which I did. And no one was envious of anyone. Everybody was content. We were all brought up with strict moral values, Even though our parents were liberal, but at the same time, some things were not glorious. So, honesty, integrity, calling a spade. And of course, brought up in church, no matter what, you have to go to church. And in all those years, I didn't see anybody divorcing anybody. Typically, your neighbors were very nice because typically they will also be children of civil servants, if you go to school together. So, that sense of community was there where not just your parents were respected by you, you respect everyone, in the society, and value-driven kind of society. So for me, growing up was fun because from primary school, I've always been an excellent person academically. So I enjoyed, always being first when I was in primary school. And of course, getting to secondary school, intellectualism continued. I enjoyed my secondary school.
Was there a time you came in second?
In primary school, I don't think so. I think I was first all through.
Then in secondary school?
Oh, let me think. Primary. Was I first all through? I'm not too sure, but I was first for the most part.
Okay.
Because I was the overall best student anyway. So,
okay.
I mean, I took it for granted, I was one of these students that, I just knew I would be first, that kind of feeling.
I see.
But it was a different ball game in secondary school.
Okay, let's hear about that.
Well, my secondary school was Abuja Grammar School, so it was a concentration of the best from everywhere. As I was the best from my primary school, so also everyone, you could imagine, they were also the best of the best from their own different primary schools. So
Interesting.
entering Abuja Grammar School then was highly competitive. So you just have to be extremely good to be able to get admission. And even though the school was in Abuja, the majority of the students were from Lagos. So you can imagine Lagos pupils competing with us Abuja pupils, to get a slot. So it was always highly competitive. So, I mean, imagine you're in class, the guy next, your seatmate was head boy from there, that one was head boy from there. That kind of setting. This one was head boy, this one was this one won this competition, that one won this competition, this one went to gifted children's school, that kind of thing. So, of course, I was good, but the good was relative. Because now I'm in the midst of very powerful people where you just have to find a bearing. So the first 3 years, it was a bit of struggle. That's throughout junior secondary because I was also very playful. But by the time I got to senior secondary, I got my hearts and together, and I started excelling. And before I know it, I did so well. So that's and of course, in the process, gave my life to Christ. So
okay,
that was it for me.
What changed though when you got to senior secondary school? Was it giving your life to Christ?
Yes, it was because I knew I was getting closer to life, and I wanted to go to university. So, again, you could see that thing has always been part of me. Once there's something from me, I'm always motivated. So, all around me, growing up then, she failed WAEC, he failed WAEC, he couldn't go to university. So he had to go. I didn't want any of that to happen. So the moment I got to SS1, and I knew this is the last bus stop towards university, I just woke up and became serious. And that paid off for me. So I was able to,
I see.
Look forward to going to, because I wanted to go to university. So I wasn't ready to go to Polytechnic. So, before you know it, by SS2, and of course, I have very wonderful friends also who are so intellectually inclined. Also, some of my friends in senior secondary, we were all geniuses, quote and unquote. So we used to challenge ourselves. By the time all of us were in SS2, we've read virtually all our textbooks from cover to cover, you can imagine. And we come to class and it's always like debating chemistry, debating physics, bringing questions and say, okay, solve this question, that kind of thing, challenging ourselves. So that made everybody to stand up and to just excel academically. And the school that I went to, also Abuja Grammar School, was a center of excellence. So, it's noted for academic excellence. So that really helped.
Okay. Just a curious question. So did you have a different set of friends in junior secondary school?
Yes, I did. We were all just a playful bunch. But when I got to senior secondary, junior secondary, the way my school was that once you get into junior secondary, the same class they put you, that's the class you're going to be all through. So I had this same set of naughty, playful friends for 3 years. But, by senior secondary, they will redistribute us into new classes. So, and it's God we have it because I went to science class. So, the guys who were very serious-minded came together. So it was a bit of concentration again. So I got the right friends. And, of course, with my personal motivation too, we were able to, forge ahead.
In just a moment, Pastor Dele will talk about the experiences that led him to decide to no longer study medicine. Stay with us. I'm Osheye, and you're listening to Origins Africa podcast. Hi, dear listener. If you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes and Apple Podcast. You can also send us a tweet or comment on Instagram at OriginsAF. We love to read from you. Nopes, not later. Yes, I read your mind. Do it now. Thanks a lot. Also click the subscribe button and share with a friend. Let's make a difference together, one origin story at a time. Catch our one-to-one newsletter where we share with you one lesson, 2 quotes, and 1 question from each episode published. You'll find it at originsafrica.substack.com. originsafrica.substack.com. If you like it, please click the like button, leave a comment, share with a friend, and subscribe. Also, you can now watch video snippets of some of our guest interviews. Simply go to Origins Africa Podcast on YouTube, Origins Africa Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like our videos, and share. Let's make a difference together, one origin story at a time. Hi guys, welcome back to Origins Africa Podcast. So how exactly did Pastor Dele get the idea to no longer study medicine?
I was actually in a meeting. I still remember the meeting, and the Lord said,
This was in secondary school, sorry?
Yeah, secondary school, yeah. I was in SS3.
Okay.
I went for this meeting, and the Lord said, you're not going to study medicine. I want you to study agriculture, and so that you can have time for the work I'm going to give to you on campus, because I have a special work for you, a special assignment. And looking back, truly, by the time I got to university and the fellowship started and became what it became, there was no way I would be able to do the things I did if I was a medical student. And one, we have to suffer. You see what I mean? So it's either I face the med school and leave the ministry, or face the ministry and become, swasong, not a swasong, a byword, in the med school, So either way, I wouldn't see glorify God, because I'll not be fervent in the spirit, and I'll still be slothful in business. So, but with studying a course that is not that demanding, I was able to still excel academically, but at the same time, I was able to do the assignment God gave to me on campus.
So I'm curious. So you went to the meeting. For the longest time, I would assume you had wanted to be a medical doctor. You had probably been dreaming about it already.
In fact, it was my greatest dream. Yeah.
Exactly. And then suddenly you hear a word that you shouldn't go study medicine. Was it that easy to accept? Did it take a while? Did you reject the idea to start with?
No. Funny enough, I did not, because I had a very quick growth in the faith. So I think I came into spiritual maturity very fast. And I just had a very pleasant relationship with the Lord. And because I trusted him. So when for example, let me give you an instance. I wanted to go to University of Lagos. In fact, I remember my dad and I, when I got my JAMB form and took it to him, and he was like, you could go fill it. So we just talked about it, had a discussion in his room, and we both agreed that I was going to fill in University of Lagos. As I left him to go to my desk, left his room to go back to my room to start filling the forms, the Lord just said, no, you are not going to University of Lagos, you are going to University of Ibadan. So I just had to turn back and went to my father and said, I've changed my mind. Of course, I didn't say God said, I just said, I've changed my mind. I think I want to go to you. And I was like, well, that's fine. For as long as it's the same medicine, that time we're still filling the form way ahead. This was way ahead. You fill your form way ahead before you now go to write the JAMB, before the JAMB result is now out. So, it was just like, for as long as medicine, it was fine. So that was how I ended up going to University of Ibadan. So I wasn't planning to go to UI. I wanted to go to HILAC. The Lord said UI. So and the same Lord now came and said, it's not going to be medicine. This is what it's going to be. So it's a struggle for me. And I didn't suffer any sense of loss or deprivation, I just said, okay, no problem. And I went for it.
Interestingly, Pastor Dele was not always this way. While Pastor Dele was good academically, he was also very good socially. In fact, he was one of the school's big boys.
I was very good academically, but at the same time, I was also socially. So I was in secondary school, I could dance, I could rap. I was a dancer, I was a rapper.
Are you serious?
So I used to dance and literally debate in society. Yes, I was. In fact, we would memorize raps. For enough, I still remember some of those raps.
Oh, yeah,
one of the longest one I had to memorize was "My mind is playing tricks." My mind is playing tricks on me. And could I do what?
Could you rap for us from the ones you remember?
Of course. I still remember I make big money, I drive a big car. Everybody knows me like a movie star, and so on and so forth. Because I really love Motown Philly, Boys to Men, especially the rap parts, because I was always the one doing that rap part when we did our literary. He said, now check this out one day back in Philly. What guys wanted to straight. They said, imagine us saying, what's your name? Boys to Men. And so on and so forth. So I loved Michael Jackson. When Black and White came out, that was it for me. MC Hammer, the whole of You Can't Touch It, Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Them, the whole album, I could write out the lyrics for you. So I was that involved. So I loved dancing, loved Criss Cross, and all these people, of course, Bobby Brown, all these guys, So, I was into all that. And little did I know God had a plan for me. I was just like, of all people, me, this. But again, I started having that idea that God had a plan for me when I had the dream. That the work came to an end and I started running helter skelter, but take it serious. I just left it there. So my friend.
When did you have the dream, sorry?
Yeah, that was 1993, early 93.
Okay.
Then some of my classmates, every Thursday, they would just come in front of the class. Oh, we want to invite everybody to fellowship, try and come. They would invite me, I would just say, and I would just be like, why are you guys troubling yourself? Say you are too young to be taking religion seriously. And I was a thought leader. I was very philosophical. I was a leader. I was very forceful. So right from JS1, I've always been an opinion leader, that kind of person. So I just be like, why are you taking this thing serious? This is a time we need to enjoy our lives, that kind of thing. So when they go to and at times I even pass where they are doing fellowship, I see them praying, and in my mind, I'm like, why are these people punishing themselves like this? Young age. When they're supposed to be enjoying life, doing fellowship, So to me, I could not just wrap my mind around this whole fellowship, buzz, and sensation. I'm like, why do I need to bother myself, But the day I gave my life to Christ, nobody invited me. I was on my way home, That kind of encounter you just had with God, and I couldn't just go home. And I just had this strong urge, became troubled, go to that fellowship. I'm like, me. Then I was a big boy in school, go to fellowship. What would the girls say? News will go everywhere. Everybody will be disappointed. But I went. In fact, I still remember the experience. The moment I entered, you see everybody just turning back. As in, people were just whispering, Dele Osunmakinde, Dele Osunmakinde. And the junior, senior Dele. You could see that everybody was like, what are you doing here? And that day, the funny thing is I wasn't in fellowship, so they were having testimony day, was a day. So there was no preaching. So the coordinator just said, well, even though we're not preaching today, but eventually there's anyone here who still wants to give his life to Christ, would like the person to come forward so I can pray. And I was the only person. I just went forward. How I got to that frontier date, I sincerely still a mystery. And I left that meeting. Everyone I met on my way home that day, I preached to all of them. Everyone. And by the time I came to school the following day, everyone, all my friends, I preached to them, and people were like, "Are you crazy or something?" I mean, you know, my friends were all the big boys, co-rappers, lady rappers, all of us were having girlfriends, that kind of thing now. Big boy in school, ladies guy, you know, that kind of thing. And you now say you are born again. And I remember an experience. So there was this lady I was asking her. She was in SS2 at the time. And she was just about to give me an answer. She was going to give me an answer that week. And I became born again, you can imagine. Do you know, she actually walked up to me and she said, "Oh, I learned you are not born again. You are now SURB." And she gave me a look and I said, "Yes." And I wanted to start preaching to her. She just hissed and walked away. You can imagine. In fact, when that happened, you know what I told myself? I said, "You are now truly born again." I said, "For you to allow that girl to go." And I said, "You are not born again." And that was how it started. I still remember one of my friends walked up to me and he said, "What is all this now? What's this nonsense?" He just cornered me. So "I give you 2 weeks. You'll come out of this madness." Well, what kind of rubbish is this? And, 2 weeks now is over 24 years now. I mean, how many years? It's over 26 years now. So, it's 27 years. 28. This is 1993. This is 28. That's 28 years. So the 2 weeks has become 28 years. So that was how it started. And but you see, God, I think it was just also God's timing. Just the moment I gave my life to Christ, a revival just broke out in the school. And I usually say that revival happened because of me. So we're now having fellowship every day. We're praying. We're becoming born again. And before you know it, that kind of atmosphere, everybody was growing. And as I started growing, and it was, so by the time I was leaving the secondary school, myself and my friends were already spiritual giants. So it was that fire we carried to university to go to the assignment God gave us in university.
Okay. I would like to go back a bit. Because, from you not feeling so you are not the typical, if I may use that word, person to want to go to fellowship, right? Then suddenly you feel the urge to go. And for no reason, then you decide to go. And then it was a testimony service. It wasn't like there was a sermon that had been preached or something. And then there was a call for people to give their life to Christ. And then you stood up. I'm still trying to process how it happened. Because it's yet to...
Even me, I can't tell you this was how it happened. I knew it happened. Because how I stood up that day and went forward to, sincerely, even the whole day. Let's even go back. How I was already on my way home.
Okay.
You see what I mean? I was already on my way. How I came back, now went to the fellowship, is a mystery to me too. And gave my life to Christ, and I was the only one.
Interesting. And then afterwards, you immediately started preaching the gospel as you're on your way home the following day. I am still asking how.
Sincerely, it was like a total transformation. So that's why at times when I now see people who said they are born again and they are not serious, it affected me, which was why I said I should have been patient with people, because I was using my own experience. I'm like, look at me, the big boy here in school now, walking Christ on fire. So I felt that should be the story of everybody. So, it was a total transformation.
Could you talk about, can you remember the feeling? So is it that you felt the love of God immediately?
No, it was so overwhelming. Because I gave my life to Christ on a Thursday.
Okay.
And so that weekend I came back on Monday. And by the next Saturday, the Lord himself appeared to me. And that was how I got my commission into ministry and quoted word for word Matthew 28, 19 and 20. It wasn't a trance, it wasn't a vision, it was a physical appearance. I was in my room at home and he just walked in and quoted word for word Matthew 28, 19. He pointed his finger towards me and he said, "Go ye therefore and teach all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age." And it disappeared. And rising from that experience, I just started praying in tongues. That was how I got filled with the Holy Ghost.
Interesting.
I just started praying in tongues. So you see, and during that week, the moment I got to school on Monday, I said I gave my life to Christ on Thursday. I still went to school Friday. So by that following Monday, a friend of mine, I still remember, he's also a medical doctor now, just walked up to me and gave me Good Morning, Holy Spirit. That was the first book I ever read as a Christian, Benny Hinn. So I was already reading that, getting to know the Holy Spirit. So I was reading that mode. I'm sure you see what I mean. And now, to cap it off, the Lord now appeared. So, of course, went back to school the following Monday. Having that encounter, praying in tongues, learning so much about the Holy Spirit, so I was on fire. So, and of course, the revival now broke out in the fellowship. So you can imagine so much capital and capacity all around me, to bring out the best in my experience.
I would then ask, so why doesn't this happen for everybody? I don't know. Because wouldn't that have been easier if everybody just, I guess, supernaturally gave their lives to Christ and immediately they're on fire?
As much as God is sovereign, God is also faithful. Everyone will also have their own opportunities. It's whether they recognize it or not. Because God is not partial. So, of course, everything will not happen the same way. For some people, it might not even be secondary school like me. Maybe it's after school. For some, it could be in university. Some it could be in later life. For some, it could be in their local church. But I don't think there is anyone without the opportunities, recognizing and maximizing it, that is different.
And for some, I guess the opportunity may not be as supernatural as yours.
Yeah, it may not be as supernatural, but nonetheless spectacular too.
Even though maybe for those people it's supernatural, that would have worked.
Oh, sorry. I meant it might not have been spectacular, but nonetheless supernatural.
Okay. What's the difference?
Well, spectacular is that, it's all loud, like my own. But supernatural is that it might not be loud, it might not be flashy, but it's also of immense spiritual significance, if you see what I mean.
Well, I know you mentioned God is impartial, but I think I would still ask, why isn't it spectacular for everybody? Many people who sorry, please wait. I think the supposed highly intelligent guys, and intellectuals, if for instance they have spectacular, wouldn't that be a jump that gets them on the faith journey? That
how we use the day of Pentecost, Acts 2 and Acts 13 as an example. It's just like people now saying because, the Holy Spirit did not come into a room like a rushing mighty wind. That was for Jerusalem. At Antioch, it wasn't quite. Times were late, but it was still they being sent forth by the Holy Spirit. So at times, you see, God has a way of organizing things. It might not be like the day of Pentecost. It might be an experience like the church at Antioch, but nonetheless, if you see what Antioch delivered, eventually it was still bigger than what Jerusalem was able to deliver, despite the fact that the day of Pentecost happened in Acts 2, but Acts 13 was just the Holy Spirit says, bring out to me Barnabas and Saul. But did that in any way limit what they did? They even did more. So that's why I meant that it might not be spectacular, like a rushing mighty wind filling the house, clothing tongues of fire. It might just be as simple as hands are laid, being sent forth by the Holy Ghost that happened in Antioch. But it's still very much supernatural. So that's what I meant by that.
Okay. I know many people want the mighty Russian win, though.
Well, we all do. And the balance is that at some point it will happen. But again, like I usually say, in most cases, people don't recognize it because it doesn't come in the same shape or form. It's also varied, and there's variation. In the expression. So it's also a function of where you are, where you operate from, and how the Lord is sovereignly walking around you at the time.
Could you talk more on that? You said it depends on where you are in operation and how the Lord is sovereignly working. So,
just like what I said, the epistle of Paul to the Corinthians is not the same as the epistle of Paul to the Romans. And it's not the same to the Thessalonians, and it's not the same to the Colossians. So you could see that even in crafting the New Testament, location, geography, and of course the fact that whether you're a Jew or Gentile, even your ethnicity, your nativity count for something. So those things will always be there. But at the end of it all, you realize that the experiences and the stories, the user experience, the user journeys are quite the same. Despite the fact that they are diverse and varied in their outlook, but the underpinning is still the same because at the end of it all, is the Lord working all in all to fulfill His purposes.
Okay. But before I move into your university years, so when you said that you heard God tell you to study medicine, was it an audible voice? Was it
not to study medicine?
Not to study medicine, rather. So was it? So when you say you heard, what exactly happened?
Yes, let me recollect that day. I still remember where I was. He was more of it wasn't audible. It was more of an internal voice, and that happens to me a lot when God speaks to you from within you. So some things cannot be described, but that's the best.
How do you distinguish between that and maybe your conscience? So it's your your mind and that sort of thing.
See, my conscience and my mind will not tell me not to study medicine. Because that was what my mind.
No, but there's gut or intuition now, and gut or intuition, I think, leads people to do stuff that.
Should I say I'm one of those? Should I say fortunate or blessed Christians who have a track record of a privilege of hearing from God, from time to time, especially in very important matters. So, looking at my life over the years, I've seen a track record of accuracy. So even my wife will tell you that, look, if PD has not told you God spoke to him, fine. You could debate it, because he has come to see that over the years, once I say this is what the Lord wants us to do, at times starting out, it doesn't make sense, but she has come to see that eventually it's always God. So, so I've seen that track record too in my life, that I just know when it is God. And the truth is that at high levels and, things pertaining to my life and my ministry, I'm so privileged that it's always been more or less 100% accurate, in that regard, So it doesn't take God so much to persuade me. Once I know this is God, I just move on. And I guess it started from those early years of being just flexible, like, not arguing when you hear, don't study this, study that. And I guess over the years, that kind of affinity has developed between the Lord and I. And so it's not usually a struggle for me to distinguish, between my feelings, my will, and what the Lord is saying.
Okay. And for those out there who are listening, how would you say, what would be your advice to them in helping them distinguish?
Start obeying when it does not make sense. Like I usually tell people, you are sure you locked the door to your house and somehow the Lord is urging you to go and check the door. and you get there, you find out that the door was locked. It's not really the door the Lord is trying to ask you to lock. He's just trying to get you ready. That would you be sensitive to obey him even when it doesn't make sense? So that the day he's not going to ask you to do something big, you'll have gotten used to the truth of, obeying in simple things. So, like I was telling someone, times you are driving, and the Lord says, move to this lane. And you move to the lane. And it wasn't that because you moved to the lane, you avoided an accident or whatever. But again, it's trying to get you ready because one day now, it might not be, an accident will happen. So when the Lord is trying to do all that, it's a way of training people to be sensitive and to respond. And by the time he sees that they are becoming sensitive, more and more sensitive and they're responding, then he will begin to say the big things.
Couldn't the door, curious question as well, you will be pleased. Couldn't the door have been an OCD something?
Obsessive compulsive disorder?
Yeah, where I don't know. That's what made you turn back to check again that you had actually loved. Well, I don't know if it's OCD that captures it, but just you need to make sure that dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's. Yeah, maybe being meticulous for it. That made you want to turn back to without
like I said, I said at higher levels, I've been so blessed to be in sync. But that doesn't mean I've not missed out on God many times too. I'm human.
Could we hear some of that?
Where I felt it was God, but it wasn't God, So you learn. The Bible also talks about the Lord Jesus Christ himself, that he learned obedience by the things that he suffered. So we all learn. I've had quite some interesting experiences where I actually disobeyed and I suffered the consequences. So my obedience, fundamentals went up by 100%.
Could you share? So I just heard from your response now. I heard you first say that there were times where you had thought that it was God and that it wasn't. And then I also heard you say that there were times where you had disobeyed and then you bore the consequences. Could you maybe share experiences of both?
Let us say a recent experience where I felt it was God, or in the growing years, that it wasn't God and I felt it was God. Maybe in the choice of a life partner. So there was this sister that I felt would be my wife. So I asked her out and sincerely she said no. And after she said no, I just got to know that it wasn't of God. But before that time, I was 100% persuaded that this was God. But as saying no now became an eye-opener to me that this was not God. And now looking back over the years now, I'm thanking God that I didn't go that route at all.
What did you hear, or what was the conviction that you had that made you think that she was your life?
I just liked her. Then I felt that I prayed about it. I felt I got a certain direction from the Lord. You see,
couldn't it have also been that maybe you're supposed to be persistent? I don't know. Or why would the first time mean that?
Because some series of events happened thereafter. And I'll prove that this could have been God, But I don't want to go into details because of another person is also involved. So,
that's fine.
But the truth about the matter is I don't think she could have said yes. Because looking at my life also, one of the things I've also found out is that somehow what is not the will of God for me doesn't work out for me. I'm talking about a walk with the Lord of 28 years now. You see what I mean? And I've plotted the graph. I've drawn my line of best fit. I've found the intercept and the slope. The acceleration due to gravity. And I found out that looking back in the last 28 years, once something is not the will of God for me, one clear indicator is that it doesn't just work out. no matter how simple, it could even be something simple. Now other people are getting effortlessly. Once it's just my turn, I won't just get it. So I've learned over the years that once it's not the will of God for me, it doesn't work out. So I don't bother myself about so many things. Once it doesn't work out, and I try, I just let me share a recent example with you. So I got to the UK. I was looking for a house. It's very difficult for someone who's just coming to UK to get a house because they want to do a grand credit score and all those things. So I tried. Check this out, check that house. I get there, the landlord will even like me. But once they just say, how long have you been in the UK? Once I just say, I just came. They just start stammering. They're not giving you their. So at some point, I just gave up. I just told myself, I'm not even checking. So even agents were calling me because I have that track record with God. They just were calling me, come and check. I just say, I'm not checking. Until one day from the blues, one of my pastor friends just said, I didn't even think of that. He just said, by the way, I learned you are looking for a house. I have these agents, please call them. Do you know I called these agents and I didn't even need to go and check the house. We concluded everything on phone. That's very rare. It was when we concluded on phone and I went to check the house. Because I just told him, you see me, I said, I've checked a number of houses. I'm not ready to waste my time again. If you are not giving me, tell me this is my circumstance. I just came into the UK. The guy just started laughing. He said, no problem. I understand all that. I will still give you if you like the house. You imagine. So over the years, I've seen that once it's the will of God for me, it will always work out. Once it's not the will of God, somehow it doesn't. Okay, let me give you an example. I've applied for US visa before I was denied. My first application of US visa, so I just gave up. Following the same trend. But one day I was just minding my business. I wasn't even thinking about America. I still remember my wife would bear witness because I woke up and I said, sweetheart, I said, the Lord just said it's time to go to America. And I applied that week and I got the visa. Same with my UK visa. Same when it was also time for my wife to travel with me for the first time to America. So I just woke up and I said, the Lord just said it's time for you to go to America. So we've learned over the years to know that if it doesn't work out, it's not the will of God. Somehow it has always been my track record with God. And I'm not saying this is a rule, right? Because we all have our unique experience with God. But for me, one critical acid test of the will of God for me has always been it to work out. And once it's not the will of God, it doesn't always work out.
Even though before it didn't work out, you had felt like it was God's will.
Yes. So how I always know is that I'll try. Once I try and it doesn't work out, it's as if I always remember, don't forget your track record with God, that it's always difficult to work it out once it's not the will of God. So I just give up. And I realized at the moment I give up, the will of God will now come, like that house now. And many other things. Once I just say, okay, no problem, I give up. Then God steps into the arena and does his own thing.
For those listening who I'm sure are also, thinking and trying to put it in context with respect to their lives, just saying generally now, well, like you said, it doesn't happen this way for all people. It's
No.
It's contingent on or is based on your own work and experience with God.
Yes.
But for people generally, you may respond generally and you may respond with respect to your own work with God. But how would you say, when is it time to give up or when is it time to be persistent?
Well, exactly like you said, it's personal. Some people, their walk with God is very iterative. So they have to walk it out. Imagine the Lord telling Paul that I must show him how many things I must suffer for my name's sake. So by destiny and by purpose, Paul was already destined to suffer many things for this name. That informed his journey the way his ministry is structured and what have you. So, but that's not a story of some people. So I guess it's just a question of you knowing exactly what God is doing with you. So it's, for some people that work with God, it's very iterative. For some people, it's repetitive. And for some people, it's incremental. That means it moves from this level to this level. So I guess it's just over time. By the time you plot the graph, you begin to see what works for you and how your history and your user journey and your experience with God has been. And you can now begin to have what is called, working knowledge of your relationship with God. It takes time, but everything you do with God will begin to log into that logbook, and you now begin to see a pattern. So once you see the pattern, then, so it's not the same pattern. Like I said, for some people it's iterative, they have to work it. For some people it's repetitive. It's the same thing coming in different ways. For some people it's incremental. If it is 10 today, it becomes 22 tomorrow. So it's, you just find your bearing in God. So there's no one size fits all. In this regard, everyone will have to work out his own salvation with fear and trembling.
And self-awareness plays a crucial role, introspection and the self-reflection.
It is.
Okay. You wanted to share another example on when you had disobeyed and then you had borne the consequences.
Yeah, there are so many of those. Because I remember I wanted to go and work somewhere, and the Lord told me not to go there. Sincerely, He did. In fairness to the Lord. And I went because I thought I had an opportunity. Oh man, I suffered. And eventually I lost the job because I knew, even me going there, it was a struggle. Eventually I met people I'm not supposed to have met, and ran into trouble. But God will always save you and then give you an opportunity to start over again. So that has also happened for me. So I encourage everyone to always obey, even when it's not interesting.
And on that note, we draw the curtain on the first part of my conversation with Pastor Dele Osunmakinde. Join us next week as we explore what happened after Pastor Dele got into University of Ibadan and how we started the Vessel of Honor Foundation, which later gave birth to the Baptizing Church. Thank you for listening to our show this week. If you liked it, do leave us a review, a comment, and share with your friends. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and to tell another friend. We would also love to read from you. So please, do send us a tweet or leave a comment on Instagram at OriginsAF. You can also write to us at originsafricapodcast@gmail.com. Remember, do subscribe at wherever you get your podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, amongst others. Catch our 1-to-1 newsletter where we share with you one lesson, 2 quotes, and 1 question from each episode published. You'll find it at originsafrica.substack.com. originsafrica.substack.com. And of course, if you like it, please click the like button, leave a comment, share with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Oshaya, and you've been listening to Origins Africa Podcast. Bye for now.
My father told me life is not a bed of roses. You gotta put your way to the plow, do the work to smell the roses. Don't back down. Whatever you do, don't back down. When things get tight, keep the drive, keep the faith, stay in the fight. Draw strength from the motherland. Let our heroes hold your hand. You are the answer, friend. Origins out here, the tales of those before you. Let their stories motivate you.